Jai Bhim and
Yes.
Jai Bhim everyone and good evening. So very warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. I am more than grateful to be here and welcome you all on this wonderful and insightful session organized by Association for Social and Economic Equality. I am Shivani Ilangovan, a water policy and governance student of TISS Mumbai. I'm from second year and I shall be walking you through the seminar. So before that, firstly, I would like to welcome our honorable chairperson of this webinar, Professor, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Professor Basant Kumar Mallik. Hello, Shivani.
Yes, ma'am. No, sir was trying to say something. So I
No.
I'm
Please
so
go
sorry.
ahead. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Sorry. And so I would like to welcome our honorable chairperson for this webinar, Padamshree, Professor Sukhadeo Thorat, sir, former chairperson of UGC and ICSSR New Delhi, and the president of ASEE, Association for Social and Economic Equality. So with your continuous efforts and guidance and a will to do something for the society, we are organizing this 83rd webinar. These informative webinars and the discussions and wonderful topics and themes have been adding value to our knowledge and helping us understand the various perspectives of our guest speakers. For the last several talks, we have been inviting distinguished guest speakers and experts from South Indian states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala, and knowing more about the movements, thoughts, and ideologies. On behalf of the association, I welcome today's guest speaker, Honorable Professor Basanta Mallik from PG Department of History, Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. He will enlighten us with his talk on the topic of
Whether I am audible now?
Yeah.
So he will enlighten us on his talk with his talk on the topic anti-caste movements in pre-colonial to post-colonial Odisha and some reflections. Welcome, sir. Now I invite Professor Sukhadeo Thorat, sir, to give the welcome address.
Well, good evening to all of you and JVM, including Maurya. Maurya, you can listen to me. Yeah. Welcome to Basant Mallik. Basant Mallik is our old friend and very active in Ambedkar movement and Dalit movement. We were together in Jawaharlal Nehru University. Then he occupied Ambedkar chair there, Ambedkar Center, and also he was in the Department of History. I requested Basant Mallik to share his view on the anti-caste movement during the medieval period, and he can also come down to colonial period and link it. There will be somebody who will introduce him, but I may mention that the anti-caste movement or anti-Brahminical movement during medieval period, the role of Shudra Munis, and he did his PhD on that topic and keep on writing. So he's the best person in Orissa who can share with us the anti-caste movement. We know very little, about the anti-caste movement in Orissa. We have tried now for all the state. We have in fact covered all the state.
Anti-caste movement.
Anti-caste movement. And in the next Sunday, we have Dr. Maurya, who has joined here today. He will speak to us the anti-caste movement in Madhya Pradesh. At that time, Madhya Pradesh and central provinces. Basant Mallik, so nice of you. Welcome you. We look forward to listen to you on the Shudra Munis movement, anti-Brahmin, anti-caste movement in medieval period. Then you had also mentioned a couple of people who have worked in colonial period during the British period, and you will link with the contemporary situation. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak. I pass it on to now Vidya.
Yes, sir. Shivani, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So I also welcome our participants who have joined us in this wonderful webinar. Welcome and enjoy the session. And before beginning this session, I would like to invite Sukhadeo to please give a brief introduction for our today's guest. Over to you, Sukhadeo.
Thank you, Shivani. Good evening, all. Professor Basant Kumar Mallik has completed 10 years working as Professor of History. He has more than 10 research publications at national and international level. More than 10 students have awarded PhD, and more than 40 students have been awarded MPhil under such stable guidance. He is also a member of several academic bodies and professional associations like life member of Indian History Congress and member cum advisory committee at Center for Ambedkar Studies, NISWAS, Bhubaneswar. He is also associated with University Administration as Vice President of Social Service Guild, Utkal University, and member Admission Committee at Utkal University. He has completed the ICSSR sponsored project on educational status of the scheduled caste in Odisha, Attainments and Challenges. That's his title was PG Department of History, Utkal University, during April 2012 to March 2015. For his great achievements, he has been honored with several awards and honoraries. Some of them are as follows. Pariza Pencil, a literary award from Ravenshaw College, Cuttack in 1981. Second award is Ambedkar Centenary Prize from Bharatiya Dalit Sahitya Academy, Delhi in 1991. Third is Best Essayist Award from National Institute of Social Work and Social Sciences, Bhubaneswar, for the year 2004. Then honored by different social educational forums, including the corporate like NALCO, Angul, NTPC, Kaniha, Culture, Thermal, YSV, Bhubaneswar, etc. Recognizing his engagements in social work for poor and downtrodden, we are grateful for his presence today. Thank you. Shivani, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sukhadeo. Now I invite our guest speaker, Professor Basanta K. Mallik from PG Department of History, Utkal University, to deliver today's talk on anti-caste movements in pre-colonial to post-colonial Odisha, some reflections. Now over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivani. A respected Professor Thorat, a respected Professor Bimal Thorat, my dear friend Professor R.D. Morio, Vidya Chourpagar, and other participants. It is a great pleasure for me to participate in this academic discourse. In fact, I got very short span of a time. Last week, last Sunday, I received the mail from Professor Thorat that this is the kind of a seminar which is organized by him. And in fact, now Professor Thorat is the central point of our connection, national connection, I can say. So I am very happy to see and participate in this discourse. Particularly, I have worked on the Sudromuni's movement. Particularly, the title of my thesis was Social Protest and Popular Movements in Medieval Odisha. That has been published by Manohar. I have extended because within a week, last week, I have prepared something, colonial and post-colonial anti-caste movements in Odisha. But let us start the Sudromuni's movement in medieval Odisha. The situation of medieval Odisha, all of us, we know that all over India, there was a caste inequality, untouchability, low status of women, low status of Sudras. This is the kind of inequality we have been discussing. I'm meeting रे अछि. So this is the kind of inequality and discrimination that we have been encountering since the ages. It has not been completed so far. We are so many social movements that has been started since the time of Gautam Buddha to Baba Sahib Ambedkar, but the problem continues, and these problems are seen in a different new ways in our society. But in the medieval Odisha, I'd like to mention few protagonists, the role of a few protagonists, those who struggled, and they also outlined the new path of development, intellectual development. Most important thing is that they were Shudra Munis. Shudra and Shudra were different as we understand. They were not the fourth Varna of Indian social order. In medieval time, all non-Brahmins were called Shudras by Brahmins. That is even the Kshatriyas were also called Shudras, those who were rulers. Since the ancient time, we know how Shivaji was a Shudra ruler, and Ashok the Great was also a Shudra ruler. Similarly, our great Kapilendra Dev, Gajapati Kapilendra Dev, who was founder of a greater Odisha, he was a Shudra ruler. So Shudras were also rulers, and amongst them Shudras were also discriminated. So they had no right to education. They did not find a scope of education because the mode of education was in the Sanskrit. Sanskrit was considered as the Deva Bhasha, and only the Brahmins had opportunity of having the education. They continued to communicate to the gods with the Sanskrit language, and the literature was also written in the Sanskrit. Since Sanskrit was unknown to the common people, majority of the people were ignorant of a knowledge system. They had no access to literature. That was a great problem, academic, and a problem of a knowledge of the people as a whole. So that is the problem which was tackled or which was targeted by the team of Shudra Munis. This is leader of the or pioneer of these Shudra Munis was Sarala Das. His name was Shudra Muni Sarala Das. His original name was Siddheswara Parida, but later on he became well known as Sarala Das. Sarala Das wrote in Odia language, the language that is known, that was practiced, spoken by the people, and that language, Odia language, in the 15th century was considered as a Oduri, or it was not considered as fit to be a language of a communication. Only Sanskrit was considered as the language of a communication. But Sarala Das, he wrote Mahabharata in Odia language, Bilanka Ramayana, and also Chandi Purana. These three great epics he started, for which he was also criticized. He faced a lot of criticisms, but he was a pioneer of this movement, and he also opened the path of progress for the latter generations. In the 16th century, in fact, another team of Shudra Munis, those who are 5 friends or 5 associates, they were known as Panchasakhas. Panchasakhas, amongst them, they were Balaram Das, Jagannath Das, Jasavanta Das, Achyutananda Das, and Ananda Das. So these Dasas, they had original names, but one important thing they did, that they renounced their caste surnames and they adopted one surname, that is Dasa, meaning servant to God or goddesses. That was a revolutionary step, and what may be considered as the anti-caste pronouncement, anti-caste expression, renouncing the original caste surnames and accepting or using as a Dasa. So they open the path of knowledge to the common people, common masses. And in their literature, there was anti-caste pronouncements. They had also expressed the path for equality. They have protested caste and criticized the low status of Sudras and the low status of women. These are very, I do like to say, there are two important Sudra Munis. Amongst these five Panchasakas, 4 were Sudras, one was a Brahmin. Although he was a Brahmin, but still then a lower category of a Brahmin, Purana Pandaj. These Sudra Munis, two of them were very much prominent. One was Balaram Das, another was Achyutananda Das. And because, why they are prominent? Because they started writing in the Odia language and they protested against the exploitation and discrimination of the Sudras and their deprivation from the knowledge at the Mukti Mandapa of Puri, Jagannath temple. That is, they had entered into the intellectual discourse and disputed with the Brahmin scholars, and they have been successfully won. So that is why they are prominent. These are two episodes I would like to mention here. That is the life of Balaram Das. Balaram Das, Mukti Mandap was a great, that can be called a munch of scholars, Mukti Mandap, which was located in the Jagannath temple, Puri. Only Brahmins and a king, they used to participate in this discussion, Brahmajnana discussion, intellectual metaphysical discourse. Balaram Das, being a Shudra Muni, he was not allowed to enter into that assembly. What happened? He, being disguised as a Brahmin scholar or Brahmin, he entered into assembly and participated in the discussion or listened the discussion. But when the dispute developed, matter developed, question answer developed, so he immediately stood up and answered the question. Then people, the scholars, they recognized Balaram Das Sudramuni. How did he enter into the assembly of Brahmins in the 16th century? It was a great question at that time, and a transgression of our caste rules. So he was caught red-handed and he was imprisoned. Brahmins also rebuked in the language, tu somarata sudra sutta, tu kahu vedanta charita, tu hino mudha jana, tu kahu vedanta vidhana. That means you are a Sudra, you are born to lowly, and how dare you enter into the assembly of Brahmins? How dare you speak and pronounce the Vedas? These were the questions which were hurled at Sudramuni Balaram Das. Then Balaram Das was imprisoned. Balaram Das was imprisoned by the king because he has transgressed the caste rule. When he was imprisoned, the whole night he has prayed Lord Jagannath, and in the morning he had promised in the night that please, I will keep my hand on the head of a person, any person, even the dumb and the deep, he will recite Vedanta. So the next morning, the Brahmins brought the one person who was known as a dumb, deep, and who could not speak, dumb and deep. He could not listen, he could not listen. But when he was brought to the site of Balaram Das kept his hand on his soul, on his head, and he recited Vedanta. It is a miracle, but we listen. But this is what people say that this is happened. So what we interpret as a student of history, how could it would have happened? Because so many things only could be believed that with a miracle, miraculous events, just you listen and you can believe. But here we can interpret in such a way that Balaram Das was a saint who lived in the street of Puri, and there are so many ignoramus people, those who were devotees of Balaram Das. They used to listen from Balaram Das the Dharma Shastras, Puranas, Vedas, all these things in a story form or a lyrical form. So that man who was assumed to be deep and dumb was one of them, one of the disciples of Balaram Das. So when Balaram Das kept his hand on his sword, he recited Vedanta. Then Balaram Das was freed from the jail, and Balaram Das challenged the Pandits that the knowledge cannot be monopolized by only the one section of a society. It should be open to each and every people of the world. So what in the modern time, we can think that universalization of education, even in the medieval time or in the 16th century, the Shudra Munis could aspire to declare that education or form of knowledge should be shared by all, irrespective of caste, creed, color. This is one thing. Second thing, that the Lakshmi Puran, what I have discussed with I remember sometimes with Professor Thorat, Bimal Thorat. She has listened and she has also known it. Lakshmi Purana is considered, we considered it is the first gender literature in India. The concept of a gender, which is a modern concept, right of a women, when that was developed in the modern time. But here in the medieval time, Balaram Das wrote Lakshmi Puran, which asserted the right and the dignity of a women. Goddess, through Goddess Lakshmi, all women could get their right and dignity. The story is like this. Within 2 minutes, I take the opportunity to speak the story that Goddess Lakshmi moves from house to house every morning, and she visited once the house of a Chandala woman. Her name was Shriya Chandaluni, untouchable lady. So she entered. Balabhadra and Jagannath, they saw it from the temple that Goddess Lakshmi has entered into the house of one untouchable. Then when Goddess Lakshmi returned, Goddess Lakshmi was not allowed to enter into the temple. They decided and they removed Goddess Lakshmi from the temple. That is, the story runs like this. Goddess Lakshmi came back. Goddess Lakshmi built a separate palace on the seashore and she lived there. Then with the departure of Goddess Lakshmi, Jagannath Baladeva became pauper. Not only poor, they became pauper. They did not get food. They did not get good place to sleep. And when they were hungry, they came out on the street. They just begged food. When someone wanted to give some food, the food was also flown away in the wind. So they became very much hungry. After moving some days, they reached at the cottage at the door of Goddess Lakshmi. And Goddess Lakshmi came to know that Lord Jagannath and Baladeva, they have come. So they wanted some food. But Goddess Lakshmi sent the message through the maid that please tell them that this is the house of the untouchable lady. This is the Chandalini house. It cannot, if they take food, they would take food, then we will provide. The Balabhadra, who was the champion of a caste system, he blatantly refused that how can we take food from the untouchable house? It is not possible, but they can provide us some material. We can cook food here by ourselves. So all materials were provided. When all materials were provided, they became unable to cook a food. Even they could not set fire, because that was also with the order of Goddess Lakshmi. Fire did not burn, wind did not blow. So many things that happened by which they were unable to cook. So at last, when they suffered from hunger, they both of them agreed that yes, please provide some food by which we can get opportunity to live. So food was provided accordingly, and after taking food, Lord Jagannath could recognize that food was cooked by Goddess Lakshmi. So immediately Lord Jagannath entered inside the house and just tried to convince Goddess Lakshmi, please return to temple. And Goddess Lakshmi did not agree to return, and Goddess Lakshmi made a condition. That what is that condition? Condition is that in my Kshetra, that is Sri Kshetra, all people irrespective of a caste, creed, color, from Brahmin to Chandal, will take food together. There would be no discrimination. There will be social equality. Then I will come to the temple. Then God, Balabhadra and Lord Jagannath, both of them agreed, and Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi, returned to the temple. This is the story of a Lakshmi Purana. So there is a great social message of this literature, Lakshmi Purana. First of all, the bhakti has been given primacy with the devotion of Shriya Chandalini, with the cleanness of Shriya's house. Goddess Lakshmi visited. Goddess Lakshmi granted so many boons to Shriya. Second thing, that the one social picture, the torture of women, that is reflected. Third thing, that a compromise has been reached between God Jagannath and Goddess Lakshmi, that will propagate and practice the social equality, egalitarian order in Puri and in the Odisha as a whole, so that people would not be discriminated. Everybody would be allowed to come to the Puri, to enter into the temple, and have their prasad, irrespective of caste, creed, color. So that was the proposition of this literature, which was produced in the 16th century. So these are very important part of our social messages. But it is, although it is in the theory, but practice is something else. Practice is that inequality pervades. Practice of untouchabilities are done. Caste inequality also happens. Economic exploitation also takes place. So against that, so many movements have developed, not only in the medieval time, but also in the modern time. So in 18th century, there is also another distinguished protagonist who was Santa Arikita Das. Santa Arikita Das, he was in fact the life of Gautam Buddha and Santa Arikita Das's life is very much similar. Both were born in the royal houses. Arikita Das was also born in the royal house of Bodakhemundi in Ganjam district. But from at the age of 18, he left his palace, he became a sannyasi. And he wandered here and there, and he established his monastery in a place, Ulasuni. What is his social message? He implemented social equality in his monastery and also accepted food from Brahmin to Chandal. It is not that only good food. He could accept all kind of food, starting from countryside wine to dry fish. So that was also accepted by Santa Arikita Das. And he accepted the discipleship from across the society, irrespective of a caste color. So many untouchables were also his disciples, and he propagated social messages that there is no caste, all people belong to one caste, so they should have a big, good life, a polite, polished life, civic life in this society. That is the message. Because these are the foundation stones of the latter days social movements which are developed in Odisha. We can find out another protagonist who is known as Santa Bhima Bhoi. Bhima Bhoi belonged to the time of the 19th century and during the colonial time, and particularly Bhima Bhoi was a tribal poet, and he has given emphasis on the literature. So many Shruti Nishad Gita, Stuti Chintamani, like so many verses he has written, and he has established his monastery in a Khaliapalli, that is in the Sambalpur region. Khaliapalli, the difference with the other monastery and the monastery of Santa Bhima Bhoi is that he allowed all women devotees to become nuns. That is very important thing. He allowed the women devotees to have ashram, to live in the ashram, and to have their religious practices in that ashram. And another very important contribution of Bhima Bhoi, that in 1881, I think that it could be considered as the first temple entry movement in India. He led that temple entry movement to Jagannath Temple. In 1881, with a few of his followers, around 60 of his followers, from Khaliapalli to Puri, they came on a walk by chanting their original mantras. Their main principle was that of Shunya Puja, They did not believe in a idol worship. And their main purpose was not only to enter into the temple of Lord Jagannath. People say that since they were iconoclasts, they would have planned to destroy the image of our Lord Jagannath. Since it was not materialized in the way they were prevented in Puri itself, they had entered into Puri, but they were not allowed to enter into the temple, and they were obstructed by the dominant section of our society from the priests and also police. So it was not successful. This is first temple entry movement in Odisha in 1881. It happened. Now we can enter into the colonial time. In the colonial time, particularly Odisha was a part of a Bihar Odisha Legislative Assembly. The situation of our untouchables were also very much precarious. They had no houses, no food to eat, no dresses to wear. So many problems they had to encounter every day. So that is the one was very poverty, ignorance. These were the major problems. But here, Utkal Gaurav Madhusudan Das, who is considered as the one of the makers of modern Odisha, because he contributed a lot for a separate province of Odisha. Of course, it came to be fruitful in 1936. He died earlier, but still then he has very remarkable contribution. Here in Bihar Odisha Legislative Assembly, he participated in the one debate of depressed classes. He spoke in the assembly requesting the then British government that why a community would be considered criminal. He questioned. Very liberal views that if the people they could do a little offense out of hunger, out of a want, which is very bare necessity of a human being. So how could a group or a community could be called the criminal? So criminality, that word should be removed from the dictionary or from the records, government record. That, and he also proposed for different government measures that is to be undertaken for upliftment of depressed classes for their educational and economic development. In 1927, there was an emergence of a few other educated people among the depressed classes. Particularly, the name appears Biro Kishore Behera. Biro Kishore Behera organized the All Odisha Depressed Classes Association. And through that association, he carried forward so many anti-untouchable programs. He submitted so many memorandums and petitions to the British government for the upliftment of the depressed classes, by which these people should get opportunity to have a life of a human being. Biro Kishore Behera also edited one monthly journal known as the Arya and one fortnightly the Gariba. In 1927, another educated person, Ramachandra Das, belonged to Bauri caste. He wrote in different newspapers, different periodicals on the issues of Dalits. Particularly those periodicals are Utkal Deepika, the Samaj, the Shakti, the Prajatantra, the Garjata Basini. These are the newspapers which we are dealing with, or which are published the different issues of our Dalits. About this time, there is emergence of another educated person, Sri Sridhar Samal, who became the first graduate of the depressed classes in Odisha, Sridhar Samal. And after he became a graduate, immediately he got the government service. He was appointed by the Kotak District Board to look after the special schools which were started for the depressed class students. And in 1927, Sridhar Samal was also nominated as a member of the Bihar Odisha Legislative Council as a member. That is the beginning of the social reform movements, etc. Now there is the coming of Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, to Odisha. And with the coming of Gandhi, remarkable changes. People say that some changes occurred, but anti-untouchability programs, particularly the through the Harijan Sevak Sangha, Gandhi made so many Harijan tours, started from Puri to Bhadrak. The long tracks were covered, like so many Congress sites were accompanied Gandhi, and there are some minor temples, minor tanks, water tanks were kept open for the depressed classes, by which the sympathetic considerations were started for the life of Dalits. And with the impact of our Gandhian movement, so many changes occurred, of course, but still then that is not sufficient. So many in different places, the Gandhian movement developed, and Thakar Bapa Ashram, those were also created in different villages, different places. Gradually, with the impact of Gandhi, the people got a new consciousness, and they tried to introduce the education for depressed class children, and they tried to Sanskritize themselves. That in the portals of family or Dalit houses, they planted the Tulsi plant, they started reading Bhagavat. So in this process of Hinduization, a process of Sanskritization started with the impact of Gandhi. And to some extent, the reformative programs started. But in fact, the Dalits, after their few or some level of education, they understood the society, they understood that they can do better works for themselves, and they were organized. And India, after independence of India, they got a new consciousness, and different programs, Gandhian programs, under the banner of a Congress, those were started. And for that, I would like to mention a few names, those who became, of course, the social reformers in 20th century. And no doubt they are all Dalits, they are depressed class leaders, participated in the Constituent Assembly debates. Particularly, they became the member of two members, Sri Shantanu Kumar Das and Sri Lakshmi Narayana Sahu. They were known as member of a Constituent Assembly, and they were very much sympathetic to the depressed classes, and they have taken forward so many revolutionary works for the upliftment of these people. And a depressed class, particularly Shantanu Kumar Das, he organized the Odisha Depressed Classes League, particularly at the center Jagjeevan Ram. He organized the Depressed Classes League All India at the All India level, and their branches were also set up in different states. Similarly, in Odisha, the branch was looked after by Sri Shantanu Kumar Das. Shantanu Kumar Das, he led the movement, so many temple entry movements, and another second temple entry movement, actually, it developed in 1948. Lord Jagannath's temple entry movement. The leader of this temple entry movement was Sri Mohan Naik. I will be discussing the life of and the contribution of Mohan Naik after Shantanu Kumar Das. Shantanu Kumar Das, I would like to say that he was president of Depressed Classes League. Other members were Vice President Sri Govind Chandra Seth, Executive members Sri Lakshmana Mallik, Sri Prahlad Mallik, Sri Purnananda Samal, Mohan Naik, Sri Chaitanya Sethi, Sri Gajanana Naik, Achananda Mahananda, and Sri Dayanidhi Naik. These members, all depressed class persons, they organized the Odisha Depressed Class League, and they started their activities throughout Odisha. Their main purpose was removal of illiteracy, superstition, poverty, with the objective of spread of education among the untouchables. And their programs, they carried forward that number one, 4 workers, 2 each from ASEE and 2 from general. 2 from ASEE, 2 from general, like 4 workers were appointed in each police stations to carry forward the activities of a Depressed Classes League. The scheduled caste conferences or melas were organized in each district and sub-division level, and the mass feast, irrespective of castes, were organized by them. Different kind of leaflets, posters, and also laws relating abolition of untouchability, literatures relating to caste and untouchabilities were also distributed by this organization. Thakkar Bapa ashramas were established in the different Dalit populated areas where Dalit children were given primary education and health treatments. Dalit colonies were also established for the homeless scheduled caste families. These are the 5 activities they carried forward. Another member of this DCL or Depressed Classes League, namely Govind Chandra Seth, he set up some Dalit colonies in his villages, particularly Nimapada police station, at Kusupur, that is the police station of Gop, and at Balipat Patana, Satasankha. Govind Chandra Seth also played a vital role for establishment of a Nimapada college at the Nimapada. And Govinda Babu was a poet, writer, and also actor in one. His literary contributions are very important. He wrote so many poetic books, particularly Chakravale Alok, Ghasara Phulo, He Moro Priya Konark, Smruti Tirtha, Shweta Dvipara Chai, Punyashok Thakar Bapa, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Ausprushata o Tara Ucheda. Like this, literatures were also created by these poets. Now we can look at the life and activities of Padmasree Mohan Naik. Mohan Naik lived from 1921 to 1983, and he was awarded Padmasree. He was a freedom fighter and a great social reformer. Mohan published a fortnightly called Horizon in 1938, and he was also arrested for publicly publishing a journal, because during the British time he was imprisoned because he published and edited a journal that is known as Sevaka. He became a secretary of the Ganjam district Horizon Sevak Sangha. He persuaded the people to send their children to schools, wrote articles and essays in different newspapers, and also persuaded the people not to practice untouchability. He participated in the Quit India movement in 1942, was imprisoned from 1942 to 1945. He also joined the Jhanda Uncha Rahe Amara and raised the slogan Bande Matram. He established a Horizon Sevak Sangha at his village Nima Khandi for the education of and upbringing of the Dalit and orphan children in 1952. In 1954, he made it Thakarapa Ashram. So these are the contributions. Most important contribution that in 1948 he organized the temple entry movement. That is the second temple entry movement which was successful in Jagannath temple entry movement. In 1948, he led the Jagannath temple entry movement with the help of so many Dalit leaders like Santanu Kumar Das and other leaders like Govind Chandra Seth, Lakshman Mallik, Prahlad Mallik, and others. In 1948, Dr. Harikrishna Mahtab was a chief minister of Odisha, and with the support of Dr. Harikrishna Mahtab, the temple entry movement was successful because Dr. Mahtab discussed it with the Raja of Puri that Dalit should be allowed and the government will take up the temple management, and he brought out one act, Temple Management Act in 1948. And also, although priests protested, priests had beaten up so many Dalit entry, temple entry campaigners, but still then they were successful to enter into the temple. They had a darshan with the darshan of Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, and he also became a member of the Legislative Assembly, a member of a cabinet in the time of Dr. Harikrishna Mahtab. He wrote in one of his in the preface of his booklet, Sri Jagannath Temple Entry Movement, he wrote a very important thing that he wrote, it is not that untouchability could be removed from India only by temple entry movements. For this, social and economic movements are highly essential. His words were really prophetic and based on a truth, and that could be delineated from his own experience. That he said in 1948 that only untouchability could not be removed only by temple entry. It could be removed only by so many social and economic movements. So temple entry movement, another third temple entry movement, not Jagannath Mandir of Puri, but another Jagannath temple in Kerala, in the Rajanagar. That was also developed in 1918. So in total, there are 3 temple entry movements which have been successfully done in Odisha during these periods. Govind Chandra Seth, he also organized another association that was known as Dhote Ba Sangha. Dhote Ba. Dho stands for Dhoba. Dhoba means Dhobi caste. Te for Teli. Teli means the oil man. Ba means Bauri and untouchable. So through these 3 castes, they were combined together, and his objective of this association was that if SCs and OBCs could be united together, then a social movement or social change would be successful. That the objective of this organization was that only OBC and SCs could be associated and united together so that the social movements could be successful. So this is the anti-caste movement in Odisha. Although it is not a discussion, it is not in detail. I have just outlined the discussion because whatever time I got very small time, hardly 1 week, as Professor Thorat requested me last Sunday and this Sunday that I have to discuss. But still then, my vision has been clear that I am able to collect the material and write a good paper on the anti-caste movement in Odisha. Thank you, Professor Thorat.
My pleasure.
After a long time, we saw each other, and also had a very active and academic discussion, and that has become fruitful under your leadership. Thank you all. Now, any discussion, any question, if it is there, then we can respond. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Basanta, sir, for such an amazing and invigorating talk. It was really engaging. And now I invite Professor Sukhadeo Thorat, sir, to share his insights on today's talk.
Dr. Basant Kumar Mallik, let me really thank you for a very well-studied lecture. Indeed, I have given you a much less time, but you have gone through the all lecture, all literature, the activity by association as well as by individual reformer, and it requires a lot of effort. So on behalf of this association and participant, I thank you because we got to know the anti-caste movement, social movement in Orissa, which is hardly known. But I think if I look at your lecture, Anti-Caste movement comprises of temple entry movement, 3 times you said, maybe 4 times. Then the movement also involve, interdining with the untouchable. So you brought out anti-caste as well as the gender issue. That is very important. That gender issue you brought in there, and the issue of caste during the colonial period and the contemporary period. But equally important was that you discussed the medieval period, Shudramuni movement. I have a feeling that the Shudramuni movement is similar to that of Bhakti poet from Maharashtra. These Bhakti poet, Namdev, Tukaram, Chokhamela, all wrote in their colloquial language, Marathi. And Namdev is of 14th century. So I, in fact, would like to ask you a question, if you can clarify a little later, that do you see any connection of the Bhakti movement of 14th century and their impact on these two Shudramuni social reformer? There could be a connection. From your lecture, of course, I understood that the Depressed Class Mission Association started by Gandhiji and Jagjivan Ram was very active in Odisha. We do not see the activities by Dr. Ambedkar. But if you can also share your thought in response to this question, that you did mention the name of Dr. Ambedkar. Was the Ambedkarian movement also entered into Odisha, and there were followers in colonial period particularly? There are followers now, of course, but in the colonial period. Very interesting, and thank you very much. I think Vidya, who is also coordinator, she will first read the comment on the chat, and then you can answer, Dr. Basant. And then, of course, you open to the all participant.
Okay.
Thank you. And also we thank R.D. Maurya for being here. We are going to listen to him on the next Sunday, that is 7th of August. So it's good that he's here. Yes, Vidya, please go ahead.
Yes, yeah, thank you, sir. Now this platform open for all. You may raise your hand or write your question in chat box. We'll take one by one question.
But you can also take the question and comments on the chat box.
Comments, yes. Yeah, there is no comments now, but Dr. Thangra, sir.
Yes, let me ask one very basic question that he was referring to Bhima Boy. Any connection between the Bhima Boy and Dr. Ambedkar's mother? The name is also Bhima Boy. I don't know, is that the same or different? And you were saying that Bhima Boy started,
So your voice is not clear. It's breaking, sir. Can you please repeat? Yeah, Professor Thangra, sir.
You listened to my question or not?
Yes, should I reply?
Yes. Yes, please.
Professor Thangraj, good evening.
Good evening.
So, Bhima Boy was not a contemporary of the father of Dr. Ambedkar.
Mother,
Bhima
I think.
Boy was contemporary of Jyotirao Phule. Both of them belong to the 19th century. So Bhima Bhoi was there at the time of 19th century, and there was also a strong anti-caste movement and expression. He led the anti-idol movement. He believed in the non-Vedic, anti-Vedic movement. He did not believe in the practice of Vedas, practice of all rituals, and the Buddhist influence is very much remarkable in the philosophy and the idea of Bhima Bhoi. Because his great words are also printed in the United Nations. That प्राणीको आरत दुख अप्रमित देखु देखु केबा सहु मो जीवन पछे नरके पड़ी थाउ जगत उधार हो. That means, how can I tolerate the torture and the sorrow of the people? Let my soul go to hell, but the people must be redeemed. People must be freed. That was his great words.
Now, my question is,
Ah.
can you connect Baba Sahib's mother name is Bhima Bai?
No, Bhima Bai is different, and Bhima Bhoi. His name, Bhima name is very much ancient name. There is no link between Bhima Bai and Bhima Bhoi. Bhoi is a surname, of a tribe. That is not a Bai. Bhima Bhoi, Bhoi.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that the Bhima Bai is a male
Okay.
or female? Male or female?
Bhima, male. Bhima
Okay.
Bhoi. Bhi, Bhima Bhoi, Bhoi.
Okay. Thank you.
Caste in Maharashtra, Bhoi. Bhoi means
Bhoi.
fisherman. In Maharashtra, Basant Kumar.
Yes.
Called as a fisherman. So he must be.
Bhoi is a caste.
He must be untouchable.
Yes. Even Bhoi is also, there are some Bhoi is a royal title. Bhoi is also title of a Dalit in Odisha.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Basant, you also said that in the assembly, he was also in assembly, isn't it?
No. Bhima Bhoi was not in the assembly.
Some other person.
Some other person, Santanu Kumar Das, Lakshmi Narayana Sahu, they were in the Constituent Assembly.
Yeah.
And also member of Odisha Legislative Assembly. They became ministers. And Mohan Naik, who was the leader of a temple entry movement, he was also a member of our Legislative Assembly at that time.
Yeah.
At the time of Dr. Harikrishna Mahatab, when he was a chief minister.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pushpa Thorat, ma'am.
My question is very nicely explained by you, but my question is, there is no involvement of women in any movement as it is seen in Maharashtra state along with Ambedkarites. Is there any involvement of women in any movement?
We have not come across so far, because if I find out, because I have not gone through sources so far, if women would be coming forward or a name of a women would be discovered, certainly I'll be writing, because I will write a paper on it.
Okay.
I have not come across so far. And actually, Baba Sahib Ambedkar's movement, it came to Odisha so late. Baba Sahib Ambedkar visited Odisha in 1945 for Mahanadi River Valley Conference in 1945. And
As
in
you said,
19
as you said, in
in-
1927, there is a temple entry movement. But at the same time in Maharashtra, so many women are involved in Ambedkar's movement, like Saudar Toy movement and all. And Dr. Ambedkar, he always used to involve the women so that the improvement will be very early and in a large scale. That is what he
Yes.
said.
Yes, certainly that is the only the strategy of the movement to become successful.
Yes.
If
Yeah, but
women would come,
Basant, you did mention the name of one woman who constructed the house and who gave a food to, what was that
he
woman?
was, that is
Was-
Shriya Chandaluni.
Uh,
Shriya Chandaluni, it is in the story, that is in the literature.
okay.
Goddess Lakshmi.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Any question? Please. Nagappa Holkar sir says details about Bhima Bhoi are available in Google. He was born in 1850. So he was contemporary of Jyotiba Phule.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nagappa sir.
Ma'am, there's a sir, there's a question in the chat box. So
From
boy
Vinod
in
Sonavne.
Maharashtra, yeah. So from Vinod Sonavne, boy in Maharashtra, often in OBC, who are in state of chana, groundnut, and barbecue. So, sir, like, do you want to ask anything else in this? Okay, so another
What is
question.
the question?
No, it's a statement, sir. It's not
Okay,
exactly a
statement.
question.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So the next is by Sujoy Kanti Ghosh, and they say, respected sir, it is really a clear lecture. My query is that with the development of anti-caste movement from the 16th century, is there any significant socioeconomic change for depressed class? In the context of temple entry movement, there have any link with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's death in Puri?
Yes, there is a link between, we can make a link between Sri Chaitanya's contribution and the temple entry movement, because Sri Chaitanya was a liberal saint. Sri Chaitanya was a liberal saint, and he had also allowed so many untouchables and Muslims as his disciples. So naturally, the say if a saint would be liberal, then his followers would be many, and that has also inspired the latter generations for encouraging them to temple entry movement.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Any more question?
Basant,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah, but can I make one question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And in all the previous webinar relating to colonial and pre-colonial, there was a lot of information about the opening of schools to the depressed class.
Yes. Here also we have, there are also schools have been also open, established. Government measures were there to open different schools, open
Movement
different
also have.
hostels,
Yes.
different hostels for Dalit children.
Yes. Yeah, not only that, land and other things.
Yes. So many ashrams were also established, ashram schools, particularly the Thakar Bapa ashram.
No, Thakkar Baba is the Gandhian
Yes.
follower. No,
Yes.
I am saying by the colonial government or the British missionaries or some social movements like Dalit movement.
British government started setting up schools. very few schools.
Which
And
period you are
in
referring to? Basant, which period you are referring to?
20th century, 1920, after 22, 23.
Exactly. It's also happened in Maharashtra and Karnataka.
Yes.
Because
So,
the public school were opened by the British, but the high caste did not allow the Dalit children.
yes.
So British developed a policy that they will start a separate school for depressed classes, scheduled caste at that time. And also they gave grant to the Christian missionary to admit the SC student.
Can I continue?
Oh, you were
Yes,
talking.
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The depressed class leaders, whatever the demands they made to the colonial government, or different leaders who participated in the legislative council, what is the role for the development of these people?
No, they have demanded that the schools should be open and untouchability should be removed. The Dalit hamlets should be also created. Dalit colonies, particularly with the setting up for new houses. Because there are so many Dalits who are the homeless people. So through the depressed classes league, the Dalit colonies were also set up. Like with the asbestos said, they have set up some colonies.
Yes.
That was
Thank you,
developed
sir.
after independence.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Basavaraj Holkar asking, Jai Bhim, please throw light on Baba Sahib's movement on Odisha.
Yes, now Baba Sahib's movement is very much active in Odisha, in the post-colonial Odisha. Because of course Baba Sahib's message, Baba Sahib philosophy that reached Odisha very late. That is why now it is developed. There are different organizations in the name of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Even myself, I have set up my village library, Dr. Ambedkar Pathagar. And similar organizations have been also set up. Ambedkar Loya Vichar Manch, one organization is very active to look into the torture of Dalits, atrocities on Dalits, etc. Court cases, they are also starting. So nowadays there are some Dalit organizations across Odisha, even in Kotak, Baleshwar, even Sambalpur. Western Odisha is more active than the coastal Odisha on Ambedkar's movement.
Thank you, sir. Question from Vinod Sonavne. Any famous names of social revolutionaries who is inspired by Dr. Ambedkar social movement during post-independence period?
Professor Thorat can speak.
No. I do not know. I think R.K. Naik did some work. Yes, he set up an institute. I don't know the
Dr.
others.
R.K. Naik, yes, he set up the Social Institute, National Institute of Social Work and Social Sciences. Ambedkar chair is there. Even I established a Center for Ambedkar Studies in Utkal University, and which was the first center in Odisha University by contribution of Professor Thorat. During that time, it was established. And in no other universities of Odisha. It was only in Utkal University till today existing.
But Basant, from your biodata, it seems that your father was also active. Is it?
My grandfather.
Grandfather, yes.
My grandfather, I just told you when this Shantanu Kumar Das, who was member of a Constituent Assembly, he visited my house village. At that time, I was a school boy, studying in class 6th or 7th. I have seen him. He was sitting on a chair, wooden chair, on the ground, and the people who are surrounding him. Then our institution in the village, my grandfather, there are 3 grandfathers. They set up the Dalit Jati Sangha library. And when I studied BA graduation at Ravenshaw College, I did not like the word Dalit at that time. So I changed the name of Dalit Jati Sangha library to Dr. Ambedkar Pathaya. Then I was in search of Ambedkar, and I got Ambedkar in Delhi. When I entered into JNU, so many books, so many messages, so many works I came across, different people, persons like you, others met, and a real Ambedkarite movement I got acquaintance with. That is the very important. And my grandfathers, they have established this institution in my village. What I have developed it, and other villages also. I feel that my village is the first village which has established this kind of institution. In 1961, it was established.
Yep. Thank you, sir. A question from Shirole. Respected sir, after 16th century of anti-caste movement, where it stands today and its effect on the Indian masses in their awareness about their roots development and where they stand in the future.
So from past to future, it is a great question and a long answer. Should be there. Okay, thank you. So particularly in Odisha, in India, we can say that anti-caste movement in the different provinces are going on. But still then it should be more active, more inter-caste marriages, more intertwining should be there, by which the caste rigidity should come to be flexible. And whatever movement has been there, we are unable to make a movement like the previous ones. That is the problem. Here, we should make a confession that like the 19th century movement, 20th century movement, the 21st century is not making that kind of a movement. So, although the U-turn has developed in the social movements, U-turn of social movements. Again, this Brahminization process is also engulfing the social movements. That is a problem in Odisha as well as in other parts of the country. Ambedkar's ideology, as it should have been propagated and practiced, it is not there. Only Ambedkar is pronounced for the sake of votes, for the political gain. But among Dalits, the Ambedkar philosophy, Ambedkar ideology is very low spread, low disseminated.
Okay, thank you, sir. Viru wants to ask question. Viru?
Yes, I'm audible.
Yes, audible.
So my question about that, if we says the temple entry movement, so can we say this is a anti-caste movement? So I think it's I don't know. It's audible, no, sir?
Yes, yes, audible.
So this is, I think it's very I don't know, but it's I think it's very problematic. We as an anti-caste movement, we terrorizing in this temple entry movements, and it is very similar to the in medieval period. Those are the Santa movements. They argumenting between the Brahmins, the middleman of God, and that is. So the many people discuss about that this movement, it's very problematic. But as a now time period, is a contemporary period. So how we says exactly this temple entry movement is anti-caste movement, and it's very perfect TV terrorizing as anti-caste movement means is at that time period is a temple entry movement.
Okay. So very quickly, I can say that temple entry movement could be considered as an anti-caste movement. Because why? Because why it is there is temple entry? The program has been started. Temple entry movement has been started because the certain caste people are not allowed to enter into the temple because of that caste. So when they are enforcing the temple entry, that means caste shackle of a caste is destroyed or that is denied. So that could be considered as a temple entry movement. Anti-untouchability movement is also anti-caste movement. And for example, spread of education, school entry movement could be also considered as the partly educational movement, it is also anti-caste movement, because the significance of a caste would be diminished gradually if the education would be spread over. That is the policy. Any reformative movement, it is not only spiritual. We are not entering into the temple only to worship the God. We are entering into the temple because we are not allowed to enter into the temple. God can be worshipped outside the temple. So that is the social movement which could be considered as anti-caste movement. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Ambedkar also launched the temple entry agitation in Nasik.
Yes, 1930s.
Yeah, and finally he got it through the court. Yeah, you are very right. It was a demand for the equal right. It was not a demand to perform a puja of a god or something. Equality of right. If others can enter in temple, why not we? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Vidya. There are
Yes,
two
sir,
participants.
Yeah, there is no question in chat box now.
No, there are hand. Two participants raised their hand.
No, they asked, sir.
They asked already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vimal Thorat, ma'am, please come.
It is not a question, it's my observation. Since last 2 months, we are discussing the entire Bhakti movement in the all over India, and we cover Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, not Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, and today Orissa, Maharashtra. And we are seeing the same thread is there. There is a anti-caste movement. There is a emphasis on women's equality and entering into the temple. But this anti-caste movement and Bhakti movement there is a similarity. Only thing is there is something is in front of them. They are offering or they are discussing or they are requesting the God, whichever is there. Not in the Nirgun Parampara. The Nirgun Parampara is different. That is there is no God like just you said the Shudra movement, Shudra Muni movement, which is we also call Panchasakha movement. It is written by you only. And I remember when I was developing the course on Bharatiya Sahit, Bharatiya Bhakti movement, Bharatiya Bhakti Andolan. So I got very much support from you and the translation of the Shudra Muni's poetry.
Yes, sir.
I want to discuss the recent event happened in Madhya Pradesh. A 10th class girl was not allowed by the dominant caste to go to school, and when she tried to go, when she emphasized this, I will go and I want to learn, I want to get education. So the entire village has threatened her and her family, and they beaten up very badly. So everybody except the girl, everybody is in the hospital. The same evidence happened 15 years back in Orissa, near the village of your capital, Bhubaneswar.
Yes, Khurda village.
Her name is
Dalit girl was not allowed to ride the bicycle.
Yes, the same girl. And then I have taken the initiative and I adopted her as my child, as my girl. And then I talked to the then police commissioner, and he happened to be from the JNU. His name was Abhishek Thakur something, and he really take it seriously, and he gave the protection the girl Mamta, and she used to go to the school on bicycle, and two lady constable escorted her on scooter. So it went on up till when she passed out 12th class. So this is recent. So and this is day before yesterday, or 4 days before, it happened in Madhya Pradesh. The same thing, same incident. So we can say that the anti-caste movement, it was all over in India, and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Mahatma Phule has taken it very seriously, but still it is not happening. It is, you can't say at the ground level, the untouchability and the stopping the girls going to the school or taking the education is still going on. It's a very serious matter, and we have to really think about it and start a movement, new movement. How can when the constitution given the right to education, right to live, right to equality, how can these people, the so-called dominant caste, the Savarnas, take the law in their hand and stopping the girls not going to school? So this is a very serious matter, and I think since last 2 months, it is happening again and again. All the incidences coming in front of us. So I really appreciate your speech, and very thoughtful and very important discussion you had. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Basanta ji.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Now, Shivani, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite Gaurav to give the vote of thanks.
Okay. Jai to one and all. I am Gautam Kamble, a student of Tata Institute of Social Science, doing masters in the Dalit and Tribal Studies, presenting vote of thanks. I hope you have enjoyed the session organized by the Association for Social and Economic Equality, webinar on the topic of anti-caste movement in pre-colonial and post-colonial time in the Odisha. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the respected chief guest of this webinar, Padamshree Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir, former chairperson of UGC and ICSSR, New Delhi, and president of the Association for Social and Economic Equality. On the behalf of all the members, I express my gratitude to him. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence, guidance, and expressing your valuable comment. A great thank you to today's guest lecturer, Honorable Professor Basanta Mallik, PG Department of History, Utkal University of Vani, Vihar, Bhubaneswar, and his talk on the topic Anti-Caste Movement in Pre-Colonial to Post-Colonial in Odisha and Sub-Reflections. He talked on uh, his talk was very insightful and a detailed talk on the Anti-Caste movement in Odisha, starting from the 14th century and 15th century to the modern India. He talked about the Shudramuni in 14th, Sardars in 15th century, about how movement takes place from Odia language. Then the Brahmo-Gani discussion in which uh, only Brahmins and the kings were allowed. He talked about the Bharam Das, where he quoted the sentence, only knowledge cannot, uh, where he quoted the words, the knowledge cannot be monopolized by the only one section of the society. The story of Lakshmipuram, how the goddess Lakshmi entered the temple. Then on in the 18th century, how the social equality and social messages were spread by the poet known as Bhimo Bhoi, emphasis on his Odia literature. He allowed it the women in the ashram. Later, he talked about the colonial time period, then the era from 1927, how the movement takes place forward in the Gandhian movement, the destroyment of the untouchability in the Gandhian movement, and the lifespan of the Mohan Naik, and how when the Constituent Assembly formed, how the Shantanu Kumar Das and the Sahu, who were the members of Constituent Assembly, took forward the movement. Then later, thank you, sir, for satisfactory and the insightful answers to the question raised by the participants. I also express my gratitude to the Professor Thorat, ma'am, Dr. Trilok Hajare, Dr. Gautam Kamble, Professor Vidya Chourpagar, Dr. M. Thangaraj, R.D. Moria, sir, Dr. Amar Kasare, Professor Dr. Kanak Lata Mahapatra, and member of association. I would like to thank to all participants, members for their presence and the enthusiastic participation and for the question to make this session more engaging. Thank you each and every member of the cooperation and making this session successful. Thank you, Jai Hind. Thank you, ma'am.
Gaurav.